Hey lady, your face is ruining my meal. The words cut through the cozy murmur of the diner like a blade. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Forks hovered in the air. The clatter of ceramic against metal went still. A single drop of water slipped from a waitress's hand and spread across her apron. Her scar long, angry, and lit unforgivingly under the fluorescent bulbs was suddenly the only thing anyone could see. But she didn't flinch. She kept pouring coffee with the same steady motion, eyes never meeting anyone else's. No one spoke up. No one defended her. Until a teenage boy sitting quietly in the corner stood and said, "She saved my father's life twice." Just 6 words. That's all it took to bring an entire room to its knees. To understand what happened that day, you have to go back to the beginning. Ben Kramer wasn't easily rattled. After years managing busy restaurants and Denver-screaming chefs, overflowing ticket lines, picky customers, she thought he'd seen it all. But nothing prepared him for what he would witness that particular Sunday morning in Maple Hollow, Montana. The Maple Hollow Diner was nothing fancy. Red vinyl booths, a cracked jukebox that hadn't worked right since '94, and steaming mugs of coffee thick enough to stand a spoon in. The kind of place where regulars argued about the weather and ordered venison pie like it was medicine. Ben had only been there for 3 weeks, having taken over as manager after the previous one retired. He wanted something slower, easier, but that morning wasn't easy. He just finished checking the inventory in the walk-in fridge and was rubbing the grease smell from his hands when he saw her again, Jenna Maddox. She was moving with the quiet efficiency of someone who had worked there far longer than he had. 3 plates balanced on one arm, coffee pot in the other, not a step wasted. Jenna didn't speak much, but her performance was flawless. Always on time, never flustered. Ben hadn't noticed the scars before. Maybe it was the lighting. Maybe it was how she carried herself head high. Posture perfect, eyes never lingering. But today something shifted. One scar ran from her temple down past her cheekbone. Another dipped below her collar, hinted at but never fully revealed. Jenna didn't hide them, but she didn't explain them either. And most people pretended not to see them. That is, until a man at table 6 large, red-faced, and loud snorted loudly enough for half the diner to hear and said, "God almighty, I came here for breakfast, not a horror show." Laughter exploded from his table. Harsh, jarring laughter. Still, Jenna didn't respond. She poured his coffee like she hadn't heard. But Ben saw the way her fingers clenched around the pot, the way her back stiffened slightly. She had heard. Everyone had. But the silence, thick and compliant, was worse than the insult. Ben took a step toward her, unsure what he'd even say, when he noticed a teenage boy across the room watching it unfold. The boy wasn't laughing. He wasn't looking away either. His eyes were locked on Jenna, not with pity, but with something harder to define. Something like reverence. Ben didn't understand it. Not yet. Later, it happened again. Jenna had just set down a plate at another table when the woman sitting there leaned in and whispered to her husband too loudly, "Why would they let someone like that serve food?" Again, Jenna gave a slight nod and topped off their coffee like it didn't bother her. But the pot trembled just slightly as she walked away. In the back kitchen, Frank the line cook caught Ben's expression. "Don't get involved, boss," he said quietly. "She's been dealing with crap like that for years. Most folks just ignore it. Some people just can't handle different." Ben gritted his teeth. "It's not just what they're saying," he muttered. "It's how everyone else says nothing." The silence was violence in disguise. And then came the little girl. 5 years old, maybe. Big, curious eyes and no filter. She pointed at Jenna as she cleared a nearby table and asked loudly, "Mommy, what's wrong with that lady's face?" Her mother yanked her hand and hissed, "Don't stare, it's rude." But she's the one with the scars. Ben saw it. Every word. Every reaction. Jenna just gave the girl a soft smile. Practiced. Painful. He found her minutes later in the break room, splashing cold water on her face. Her hands were trembling. "You okay?" Ben asked. Jenna didn't answer right away. She dabbed at her cheeks with a napkin and met his eyes in the mirror. "It's just a face," she said softly. "But people treat it like it's a crime scene." Ben stood there useless, silent. She glanced down. You don't have to protect me, Mr. Kramer. I'm used to being invisible. When they returned to the dining room, that teenage boy was still watching, still paying attention. His gaze didn't flicker from her. And Ben realized something it wasn't admiration. It was recognition. By 11:15, the place was packed. Jenna moved with the same rhythm. But Ben saw it, customers starting to ask for other servers. Melissa, the youngest waitress, kept mumbling excuses. They requested me. I think they're regulars. Jenna said nothing. She never argued. But her section was now filled with sharper glances and hushed whispers. Then table 5 happened. A man in a golf shirt leaned back as Jenna approached. Isn't there someone normal who can serve us? He said with mock politeness. Jenna's voice didn't waver. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I'll find someone else. She turned and walked swiftly toward the kitchen, 7 steps exactly. Ben followed. You don't have to take that, he said. It's not the first time, she replied. It shouldn't be the last either, he shot back. She didn't answer, but her hands kept shaking. The final straw came just after noon. 4 men came in, loud and overconfident, dressed like they just finished a round of golf at some country club. Sunglasses still on, laughter echoing. They took a booth in Jenna's section. She straightened her apron and approached with a notepad. Welcome to Maple Hollow Diner. What can I get for you today? One of the men sneered. Hey, Scarface. You got any pancake specials for freaks like you? His friends cackled. Another leaned forward. What happened to your face? Kitchen accident? Meth lab. Ben shot to his feet, ready to intervene, but Jenna lifted a hand. Not toward the customers. Toward him. I was injured in Afghanistan, she said calmly. Now, would you like coffee or tea? The laughter died. Afghanistan, one said, disbelieving. What were you doing there, huh? Handing out snacks to the real soldiers? Another smacked his glass off the table. Oops, he said. Look what you made me do. Better clean that up before you cut someone. Jenna crouched, hands trembling, picking up shards of glass, silent while the room stared. Then came the manager, Dorothy Hammond, diner owner. She crossed her arms. Jenna, she said sharply. Clock out. Jenna looked up. I haven't finished my shift. You're making people uncomfortable, Dorothy said. It's bad for business. Ben couldn't breathe. Jenna stood slowly. Blood pooled in her palm. You're firing me? Because of how I look? Dorothy's voice was steel. Because of the complaints. Nobody moved. Not Melissa. Not the cook. Not the customers. And then the boy in the corner stood up. 6 words cut through the silence. She saved my father's life twice. Every head turned. Jenna froze. The boy, tall, thin, maybe 16, held up a worn photo. My dad is Captain Joel Merritt, 10th Mountain Division. 2 Purple Hearts. He told me about a medic who saved him twice. He stepped forward. First time, a roadside bomb hit their convoy. My dad was trapped, gas leaking, gunfire from the ridge. Everyone dove for cover except her. She ran into the fire, pulled him out, shielded him with her body. She carried him back to the field hospital while bleeding herself. Ben's throat tightened. She passed out minutes later. But before she did, she apologized for being too slow. Dead silence. Second time night raid. Dad took a bullet. No medevac, no signal. But she didn't wait. She ran alone across open terrain. Stitched his collapsed lung using a pen casing for a chest tube. Carried him to safety. That woman was her. The boy pointed at Jenna. I never knew her name. Not until today. But those eyes, you've seen them every day in that photo. She's the reason my dad came home. He turned to Dorothy. You didn't ask who she was. You just saw her scars. He turned to the crowd. But those scars? They're medals. You just don't know how to read them. A man in the back stood. I served in Vietnam. I sat here and said nothing. Ma'am, he saluted. I'm sorry. Someone whispered, forgive us. Even the men at table 9 dropped their eyes. Ben stood rooted, watching. The boy stepped beside Jenna and handed her the photo. My dad says he owes you everything. So do I. Jenna took it, hands trembling, face unreadable, but something shifted in the room. One clap, then another. Soon the entire diner was on its feet. Applause thundered, not for food, not for service, but for Jenna Maddox. Sergeant Jenna Maddox. Dorothy stepped forward, pale-faced, holding a folded apron. I didn't ask, she said softly. That was my mistake. I am sorry. Jenna looked at the apron, then at the faces around her. Eyes that once judged, now softened with understanding. I don't need it anymore, she whispered. That night, the story spread. By Tuesday, it was everywhere. A local reporter's blog post went viral. The hero behind the scars. 2 days later, a call came. It wasn't pity. It was a job offer from the VA. Community outreach. We need voices like yours, they said. You understand what it means to come home different. Jenna accepted. On her last day, the diner filled again. But not for pancakes. For gratitude. Some hugged her. Some gave her letters. One gave her a plaque. Scars don't shame us. They prove we came back. Josh Merritt stood by the door with his parents. His father, Captain Joel Merritt, wore his uniform, chest out, eyes proud. He stepped forward. Sergeant Maddox, he said, reporting home. They embraced like family. 6 months later, Jenna stood on a high school stage on Veterans Day. Josh, now a junior, introduced her. Heroes don't always wear medals, he said. Sometimes they wear aprons and scars. Jenna stepped to the microphone. You might forget my name, she said. But don't forget, these scars don't make us broken. They mean we survived. And sometimes we survive so someone else can live. At the diner, by the register, they hung a photo of Jenna in uniform, holding a coffee pot. Under it, courage serves daily in honor of Jenna Maddox. Because not all battles are fought on fields. And not all heroes were what you expect. But when truth speaks and dignity rises, everyone stands.